I burned myself with the cigarette lighter in my mom's car.
I was scratching myself until I bled.
I would hold a padlock in my hand and hit myself in the legs.
I use my razor, but I don't use knives or razor blades. I just use a regular shaving razor.
It's any sort of self-injurious behavior purposely done. It's done intentionally and repeatedly, and usually in an impulsive nature.
It's a release. I mean, it helps. It helps calm the crazy.
We develop these beliefs about ourselves, the world, and others based on the traumas and the attachment wounds we've experienced, such as, I am a bad person. I'm not worthy of love. People are always going to hurt me. The world is out to get me. And these aren't cognitively learned, these are emotionally learned. So our emotional part of the brain does not communicate to our cognitive part of the brain. And so you can cognitively tell this person, you need to believe this way or that way. But you really have to get to the memory where that was learned and have a new experience.
The root of the trigger is a fear of abandonment or losing something, someone rejecting me, whatever. My dad is still a huge trigger for me. He can send my emotions from 0 to 10 in a matter of seconds, just by tone of voice, what he says, whatever.
It's very common for self-harm to be related to just stress in relationships. So then you'll also see it show up in sabotaging relationships, maybe acting out and trying to push people away when that's the last thing they want to do. So you'll also see it very common with eating disorders. You'll see those that struggle with self-harm also struggle with eating disorders.
But if I felt out of control, or if I felt like it was just too much, then I could do something about it and get myself back to normal, or back to set point. It helps in the immediate sense when things just get so out of hand, but in the long run it doesn't. And then when you're having to hide it from everybody.
It's typically like 1 in 5 females and then 1 in 7 males. However, it's really hard to get an accurate, statistic reading when a lot of people conceal the activities. So we don't know for sure, but it's typically seen more in females. And I think it's more common to start in preteens and adolescents. However, I have had clients that have started at an older age. They do see an increase in when you go off to college. But it's more likely that it's going to start. They say 50% actually start at 14 and continue until their 20s. Most often, there's some underlying trauma. They say, 50% of people who self-harm have been sexually abused. And so I think trauma underscores a lot of what's going on. Well, if you think of trauma, it's you either are fighting or flighting or you're freezing. And so sometimes in self-harm, it's because you feel so numb, and that's that frozen state. And so you want to just feel something. And then oftentimes with trauma, you blame yourself for things. It's your fault. I'm a bad person. And so when you see that and you internalize what's been done to you, how you've been hurt, you'll find yourself kind of repeating the abuse almost. And that can sometimes translate into self-injury or self-harm.
It doesn't take much for me to get to a level 10 of emotion. So, you sit with it and you sit with it and you try to calm yourself down, but it doesn't exactly happen all the time. So I felt like rage inside, like I wanted to hurt something, punch something, but I don't want to ever hurt other people. So I inflict the pain on myself.
It was described to me this way by a client recently. The physical pain equalizes the emotional pain. It's not done for the reason to kill themselves or to hurt themselves. It's more done to relieve that emotional pain.
When your body feels so much internal emotion after a while, you start to physically get ill. So self-harm helps. And it's a terrible coping skill. But I'm still learning ways to regulate my emotions that don't involve self-harm.
So I think the most important thing is not to overreact. And it's to simply sit down and talk with them and ask them what's going on. What can I do to help? You know, can you tell me a little bit about, you know, what's led you to cut? You know, the why word is kind of tricky because you don't want to blame it, but what's led you to? And then I think the next thing is, what can I do to help? Ask them what they need, because it's going to differ from individual. There are people out there that do see your emotional pain as real and will validate it and love and support it. And so that's where a counselor can come in and help. That's where a counselor can help parents, you know, and help loved ones, help them know how to respond to someone who's going through this. And that's through, you know, acceptance, non-judgment, love, support, and just listening to what's going on with them, and helping them validate that emotional pain so they don't have to go to the physical pain. Their emotional pain's real, and it's worthy of being heard and loved and taken care of. I want to let them know that's important, that I validate that. I also think that talking about it can be triggering. So if you ask them details, it may trigger another session, and that's really the last thing I want to do, is trigger that. I also don't want them to think that I'm so overly concerned about that to the point it feels like I'm, you know, checking in on them, checking up on them, like, oh, did you self-harm? You know, I want it to be more relaxed, and I want them to feel comfortable with me. The key is to getting to know the individual and why they do it, and really helping meet their needs based on how it's been for them. One thing that parents and friends can do to help is ask them what their experience has been with it, and not to assume it's because of this. That can help. The first step is, you know, telling someone about it, or someone finding out and bringing it into the light to where it's no longer a secret. And when it's first met, you know, with acceptance and non-judgment, that already sort of takes away the urge to self-harm. Oftentimes I just say, I want them to listen. I want them to, you know, care and be concerned.
Sometimes things get really tough, and sometimes you have to go talk to somebody about it.
If you're talking about specific therapies available, you know, the most researched and effective have been our CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, and DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy. And the differences between those are really just cognitive. CBT is more geared towards changing your distorted thoughts, and then DBT combines both the cognitive and the behavioral therapies. So those are two. However, every counselor is going to work a little different. And I think it's important to meet with a couple, you know, interview them and find a good fit. Figure out the one that works best for you. And that may happen in one sitting, or it may happen over time as you start engaging in more self-care. The more self-care you do, the more you realize you're worth it and you're lovable. Or it may be reinforced by starting to engage in new types of relationships that confirm the belief that, yeah, there are people out there that do care about me, that do want to hear about, you know, my pain, my emotional pain, and that will validate me. And that can kind of rework that emotional belief.
I don't want to keep living my life this way. So yeah, I think I'll recover from it, because I've already seen such a dramatic change from 10 years ago to now.
Once it's brought out into the light, the secret's gone, the shame's reduced, and it's met with love and support and care. That's the start of it.
My broken love will never stay. Try to hurt and I always say